Today, we're going to have a special edition highlight episode of the Black Cat Report. As we stumbled across an untold case in Australia, a UFO flap buried in government documents. And while we're preparing the larger episode, wanted to share some of the highlights for you. We will be back next week with a full episode of the Black Cat Report. Enjoy.
I didn't see you there.
Something big is going on here.
From hunting ghosts to Bigfoot.
Paranormal, UFOs, true crime, and more.
We won't just be spouting articles.
I was researching for your entertainment.
Beginning of a new world.
The best guac you'll ever fucking eat.
True story.
It's basically like one day you walk outside and you see that the ants are playing with matches.
This is the Black Cat Report.
See you on the other side.
By the way, I've gone through and basically defuzzed or destaticked a lot of these documents. There's about 43, there's about 54 in total in the collection under that file name that I mentioned earlier, of which I do not remember and will not repeat, but will be listed in the show notes. I've gone through and cleaned a bunch of them up and tried to make them legible, along with using optical character recognition and like OCR to extract as much readable text from them as possible. So those will be on the website. There'll be a link to it, along with the link to the original collection of disclosed government documents. So let's hop in. Forwarded for information, the following report of an unusual sighting at Admiralty Gulf. This phenomenon was reported by a crocodile shooter. Between the hours of 2000 and 23:59 on Tuesday, 13th of October, a large patch of light was observed just below the surface at a range of approximately 1/2 mile. The light remained stationary as I steamed towards it. But on getting closer, I was alarmed to find the water in the vicinity becoming quite hot. I steered off and proceeded to circle this thing for about 15 minutes and then decided to attempt a second observation. On approaching it for a second time, the water was still quite hot, and the closer I approached the patch of light, the hotter the water became. I was quite alarmed at this, so I decided to leave the area. The depth of the water in the vicinity is between 8 to 10 fathoms. Officer note, the story was substantiated by a crew member. Further note, no further details are available. Signed, Captain Rand, Naval Officer in Charge, North Australia area. So what do y'all think about a massive light appearing under the water at, what would that be, 8 o'clock at night? Between 8 and 11, basically midnight, almost midnight. What do y'all think about that? Does that still sound like a drone or a star that's just up in the sky? Because this guy's saying the water was getting boiling hot and there was a glowing light beneath the surface.
I don't think, obviously I don't think it's drones. I mean, there were probably some drone action before, but I still think to me, I'm still getting the vibes that's some military stuff. I'm not getting alien vibes, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I need to hear more.
Okay.
Because I can see that you're like, oh, just wait until you hear this. But as of now, I'm just getting military vibes.
Okay. That's fair.
What about you, Joey? Are you getting alien vibes or military vibes?
I'm personally thinking about the crocodile sniper or shooter that the crocodile hunter would be really pissed off was happening. But I believe Steve Irwin would believe that they were also UFOs or USOs, because at this moment it seems like it's a USO under an unidentified submersible object, excuse me, before I get murdered by UFO people.
Also, it's the 60s, and in the 60s is when they were trying a lot of new stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say, though, this is like bumfuck middle of nowhere, Northern Australia. Like, this is like real bumfuck middle of nowhere, Australia. There ain't shit out there.
Yeah, Australia's like not even part of the world. It's just its own thing.
Pretty much. And these documents have almost convinced me that Australia is real. Almost. I'm not 100% convinced
almost
yet.
there, guys.
Yeah.
If you send some emails for haters@blackcat.report, just to convince them a little more that Australia is real. I have visited on it. I can say that they're not all actors that live there.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay. But
Chris Hemsworth is from there, and he is an actor.
Yeah, but
you
he's
know,
not real.
That's causation, though. Like, he's just an actor because he's an actor, not because he's from Australia.
Oh, wow. You trust an
Okay.
actor telling them where they're telling you where they're from? Wow, Joey, that's a good idea.
But Joey's an actor too, and Joey's not real.
Maybe I'm the plant. I'm the Australian plant in here. I mean, they're all Australians, mate.
Yeah, this sounds fake.
All right, so this next one is from February 6th.
Okay, hold on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Can I add that the fact that I'm saying this is like a lot because you know me and I'm always down but to believe that's like aliens. The fact that I'm saying like I'm not getting the vibes yet.
Yeah.
That says a lot.
Well, okay, so thank you for stopping me there. Thank you for bringing that up. Because I wasn't sure when I was actually going through and cleaning up a lot of these documents. I was like, wow, this is a lot of strange sightings. And this seems like the government, especially with the phrasing about them being like, report everything. We need everything. We want complete records for reference. Like, that seemed a little bit strong, in my opinion, to just read in some small memos about some shit, right? Especially, you know, just some random shit like some locals reported a light, you know? But then I kept reading that more, and and they kept referencing, like, we need all the records that we can find on this. Please forward them to this person, da-da-da-da-da. And then the tone starts to change, where they're like, I forwarded it to this person who works in a public service, but I didn't include this. Here's what I didn't include in their report. And I was like, well, that's interesting. But as I started to move through this, I was like, this has to be something else at first, right? Before I cleaned up all of the documents. And so I went on about a 7 or 8 hour binge on the CIA's website looking for any unique reference. And for everybody else's reference, literally search engines are my job. I feel pretty good about using them. I couldn't find a damn thing. The closest thing that I did find was this thing called it was like a CCC. It was like a compact color cell or something like this. And it was a part of the CIA's program of like testing high definition color photography for aircraft, right? And Northern Australia was one of the stops. And it was in the late 50s, 60s, maybe into the 80s or 70s. But every single thing about that program, right, either didn't line up timeline-wise and was already public information to everybody in the military. Like, it was not just like the Australian military wasn't just aware of it going on, but they were flying in and out of, like, public airports. It was just actively like, yeah, we're just doing this. Like, it's no secret that we're trying to get color cameras. You know, that's no fucking secret. So they weren't, even by the CIA standards, like, there was almost no level of, like, classifying the projects that were going on in this area at the time. Basically, I couldn't find shit. I could barely find half these little towns, half these little areas, the names of rivers, the names of military officials that were involved. And there's a lot of weird spelling here. Should have been able to find something. I couldn't find fucking anything. So... Wow. I don't know. And if anybody's doing it at the time, it was the CIA. I'm just saying. Yeah. Like, they're gonna be on that shit. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, the 60s and the 70s were basically the CIA years, you know?
Yeah, but they were mostly busy in South America, you know, and, like, Middle East.
Outside of the U.S. at the moment.
Yeah. Well, no, they were super busy in the U.S. They got in trouble for that
too.
Later.
Yeah. But, I mean, they were everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They were everywhere.
God damn it, how many were there?
A lot. I wonder if there was ever details about how many agents there have been.
Oh, God. I looked up the other day what percentage of the American population works for the government, and I think I've decided to block that number out of my head.
Oh, my God. Tell me now.
I want to say, God, somebody can correct me. You can Google this real quick. Google this yourself and look. It was a startlingly high percentage. It was like 18%, 19%. I'm like, oh, it's like, it's almost like 1 in 5 people. Like, it's just like, oh, shit. Like, it was a lot. It was a lot of fucking, Joe, you looking it up?
I am. It's 6%.
God damn it. That's like 5 million.
I mean, that's a lot.
What
It's 9 million workers.
Uh,
It's
I'm
6%
one
of the
of them.
workforce.
Not
the population.
Okay, that's
It's
different. I was like,
yeah.
no, I'm pretty sure the number was higher.
It's 14.5%.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fucking people. Although
Yeah,
they
that
might be
work.
counting like postal workers. Anyways,
It's state, local, and federal. Yeah.
gotcha. Back to the story, motherfuckers. This next one, February 6th, 1964, addressed to Captain Glendhill, NOIC, Department of Navy, Darwin. Dear Sir, title Report on Magnetic Disturbance and Local Compass Activity. Very exciting title.
Mm-hmm.
Attached is a report received at this office from V.B. Perkins & Co., Darwin, who operate the landing barge, Lolen M, as a cargo carrier. The report originated from the master of the vessel operating in the vicinity of De Groot Islands, and we are forwarding it to you instead of directly to the Hydrographic Office, owing to other interesting phenomenon in the report. Yours faithfully, G.W. Hughes, Harbor Master. J. Johnson was on wheelhouse watch. C. Wooler was on engine room watch. At 2100 hours, J. Davis reported when changing watch that he found difficulty in steering a straight course by the compass. A. Scott took the wheel and found the compass was unsteady. However, he passed it off as being overtired and steered by the stars. At 2400 hours, J. Johnson relieved A. Scott. At approximately 045 hours, the compass swung 90 degrees off course. At the time, J. Johnson was steering by a star. The compass swing became greater. At approximately 0140 hours, J. Johnson sighted a light extending right across the bow on the horizon. He handed the wheel over to C. Wooler and went to Monkey Island to have a better look. He came down to the wheelhouse and told C. Wooler to have a look. C. Wooler turned out the compass light and saw a glow on the horizon. Both J. Johnson and C. Wooler could see under and over the light patch. C. Wooler turned on the compass light and found the vessel approximately 60 degrees off course. That's pretty significant. Sorry to throw in a comment there, but the compass went, quote, haywire. As soon as he had corrected the vessel as best he could, he switched off the compass light and found the unnatural light was about 6 feet on the starboard side. The light was in the water. It was described as ghostly white light. In the center was a shadow which rotated in a clockwise direction, causing the light to pulsate. The light appeared to draw away from the stern. It is estimated that it was miles across and a few hundred yards through.
Wow.
J. Johnson saw another light patch coming. He immediately woke A. Scott. The light was coming straight at the barge at considerable speed. Henry Back was woken up. J. Johnson was steering by compass. As the light, which was pulsating, came close, the barge swung away to starboard through 90 degrees. J. Davis was then woken up. The light in the water passed about 100 yards to port as the barge began to return to course. Another light was seen, coming at the barge at an angle of about 45 degrees to the bow. It came to within inches of the starboard side and appeared to rebound at 45 degrees with the stern and moved away. It disappeared in a few seconds. The second light appeared to be about 400 yards long by 100 yards wide, and the third light slightly smaller. 3 more patches appeared on the starboard side and passed in a few seconds. These patches were quite small. The light passed at approximately 0230 hours. Fair glows were seen in the horizon until 0245 hours. At approximately 0300, the compass settled down, and we had no further trouble. All the lights were the same color, with this strange rotating shadow causing the lights to pulsate. The pulsations timed at 12 for 9 seconds, then completely irregular, then settled down for 12 to 9 seconds. The compass swung out of control but became worse as the light approached. All members of the crew who were off duty were sleeping on deck. The moon had set, and the sky was scattered with light clouds. A thunderstorm was over the horizon to the northeast, and a squall on the horizon to the southwest. course steered. 205 degrees.
It's a lot of electromagnetic interference there. The pole's going crazy.
Yeah. Betsabe, did you catch the size of the fucking light in the water? Are you starting to see why I was excited about this shit? This is nuts. This is fucking insane.
That's some futuristic shit right there.
Where was the
football-sized fields in 100 meters or 200 meters? It's freaking crazy.
No, it says
like at the beginning, I was picturing like small stuff, like drone stuff, you know?
Yeah, they say at the first time it's like it is estimated that it was miles across and a few hundred yards through.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus
like,
Christ.
Okay.
That's a city.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a fucking city underwater. And then the other one, there was like the big one, right? And then there was like the medium, and then there were some small ones. The medium one was 400 yards by 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And the shit had a circular pulsating light pattern of shadows. Whatever the fuck that means. Under the
crazy.
water. And like the shit came 6 feet from the edge of the ship.
Damn.
That is insane. I think, what time did this all... Okay, so their compass issues started at 1:45 a.m. Shit didn't settle down until 2:45 a.m.
Damn, it's an hour of that.
Dude,
Like,
that's
what were they
2
doing?
hours.
I guess they're just observing it.
That was 2 hours of fucking massive ass lights in the water around them fucking their shit up.
Mm-hmm.
That is insane.
That's a lot of time to sit there and also be trying to steer a ship in the correct direction and not hit things and not hit them, or even hit the thing that's right in front of them. Apparently,
That was
they're
like,
just like, what? They're like, what the fuck is this thing?
yeah, they were literally playing chicken with the shit. Like they didn't want to be, but like, yeah, they're and like the first thing, and this has popped up so many times in like UFO history, is like compasses getting fucked up. That is one of the most classic signs of a UFO being around. It's anything magnetic and anything electronic. Like electronics shut down, batteries drain, and compasses go fucking nuts.
Yeah, also when you said that, I was like, okay, yeah.
It's like Brooklyn Bridge and all the cars stop working.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Or
literally.
we'll have an incident when the truck didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or anything we've recovered.
Any goddamn UFO. Or Berkshire UFO incident. Or
even the Mothman.
Yeah. Or Betty Andreessen's television. Well, that was just regular plugged in, but still.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
Or
still.
Mothman.
Still electric.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I always get scared if my car doesn't start. I'm like, oh shit.
UFOs.
UFOs, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
It's going to be on a shirt. UFOs. They're everywhere. Smiley
Yeah.
face. Like,
Yeah.
What?
Wink.
They're not just out there, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, Dave Koresh says right, then it's
True.
and then they are probably everywhere. And hey, they've been coming more, like that conversation we talked about, how like the rise of AI, which will be probably a future episode for all of us, is that this could be a marker in time where they come back because they see and they're like, cool, AI's
Yeah, because
coming.
they were like, at first they were coming here a lot because like, oh, the nuclear bomb?
Yeah.
Yep.
Now they're like, oh, AI?
Yep. And to be clear, this is Gil's theories
Idiots.
that he told me. I'm just repeating what he said, so giving credit where credit's due.
I need to pass that credit because that goes to Richard Dolan, who was actually reading a question by one of his audience members, who was not me, but I am one of his audience members. Shout out to Richard Dolan.
Big fan.
Papa
We're
Dolan.
all thinking it.
Yeah. We're all thinking of Dolan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So here's the thing, though. I want to give a quick primer on this. When you're reading through disclosed like government documents, it is super common for there to be clippings of local newspaper articles in the dossier, in the collection of files of memos and reports going back and forth. And so what you have a lot of times here is you have the official report, you have the investigated report, right? You have all these little things in between, the memos going back and forth, telegrams, things like that. And then you also have included by their agents out in the field or by whoever's investigating it, any local newspaper clippings that are relating to it. And for some damn reason, you can't believe in conspiracy. I would just challenge you very quickly to go and look at any collection of declassified government documents and look at what the government is literally saying they know happened and what the local newspapers are reporting, and then what the government says to local newspapers. It's a simple 3-step process to not trust your government anymore. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And a lot of it's just connections, like they're connecting what field agents are saying, connecting what they're all connecting everything. And like, it's good to try to look at the whole picture, like Gil is saying, to look at everything in there around the time too, because sometimes the day before the day of the UFO stuff could happen, you could get a lot of the truth. And then the next day or 2 days later, you'll just see like, it was just a rocket or a weather balloon. Yeah. And then you're just like, a blimp.
Or maybe you have like an official, like a sergeant or a lieutenant or a general, write a very detailed memo after there's a long paper trail of him actively investigating something and ordering people to investigate it for years. Very, very detailed, like, report of all of these events and everything that happened on, let's say, like a Monday. And then on Tuesday, telling the newspaper, we have no information about these events. We don't know what's going on, but we do think that it's something completely the fuck different than what you're saying it is. While internally, they're saying, we think this is some different ass shit we never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's all about the classified documents being released.
Yeah.
And then you follow the paper trail.
I think it's a fun read. When I'll go out late at night when I'm like unwinding and I'm like smoking a cigarette, I'll just like click on a link to one of these archives and I'll start scrolling through and like looking at shit. This is an example of like when you actually find some shit. A lot of times it's just some ridiculous ass stuff and people talking about their birthday parties or scientific studies into like color cell theory or just whatever. But there's some gems, goddammit.
You
Or
always
rubber
find
band
them.
theory.
What's that?
Or rubber band theory.
Oof, don't even get me started on that. I read way the fuck too much about color cell theory. I also read about the Soviet advancement in artificial insemination of livestock and how that's going to affect their ability to raise a stronger army.
Wow, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, no, they were fucking everything that was going on. It's all there.
They're so basic.
It's all released because of Glasnost. If that's kind of how you say it. Glasnost? You never heard of that?
Are you talking about the night that the Nazis went through and smashed all the windows? Crystal Knot?
No.
Oh,
Glasnost is
okay. I was like,
that's
you
when
mean
the
when
USS
Hitler took over? Like, what are you talking about?
It's called Glasnost. At least I think that's how it's said. It's spelled Glasnost. You can look it up. But it's basically after the USSR fell, they literally started releasing all their documents. And they said, we're going to release everything. That's why there's so many documents in those days released now of like UFOs and stuff like that. That's why people went in and looked. Is because of that. Is they release like all their internal memos. Kind of like when the CIA does like a big like dump of information and classified. They did that of like decades.
One quick addendum on that. It was actually George Knapp, who I think within like a couple months or like a month or two of the fall of the Berlin Wall, basically when the Soviet Union collapsed, George Knapp, the person who broke the news on Area 51 and literally made it a household name, like that George Knapp, went the fuck over to Moscow while everything was fucking burning, people were freaking out, everything that was going on, and he got access to the government's UFO like archives and files and basically just started grabbing as much fucking shit as he could and got it out. So like, George Knapp's the winner on that one. He's also the one that kind of broke the entire story behind Skinwalker Ranch. But
yeah,
a badass.
So
Betsabe.
Glasnost means openness and transparency, and it started in 1985.
Betsabe. Next one. So now we're up to February 2nd, 1968. This is a copy of a newspaper article. Title: That was a UFO, says former test pilot. Speed estimate at 7,200 knots. A former test and wartime fighter pilot believes the light seen streaking across territory skies on Sunday night came from a genuine unidentified flying object, brackets, UFO, controlled and navigated. He is Mr. Richard Johnson, chief flying instructor at Darwin Aero Club, who saw the UFO over Darwin and categorically rejects all suggestions that it came from Earth. Mr. Johnson said the UFO appeared on a bearing of 040 degrees northeast and continued on a heading of 160 degrees before being obscured by a bank of cirrostratus clouds. In the 30 seconds it was visible, the UFO traversed an arc of 60 degrees. It was slightly egg-shaped and was, quote, very bright whitish-orange. A long-waisted tail of pulsating bright and whitish-orange trailed behind it. It moved at apparently incredible speed. Mr. Johnson watched it through binoculars strong enough to see small craters on the moon. He said that the wasted appearance of the tail probably was responsible for reports that the object was cigar-shaped. The egg-shaped part was relatively small when compared to the tail and would have almost been invisible to the naked eye. Mr. Johnson said, quote, I was becoming quite skeptical about these things, but since Sunday night, I admit I am convinced. I wasn't even looking for anything. From the appearance and behavior of the object, I consider it was controlled and navigated. I had a splendid view of it through my binoculars, and even then the object was a great distance away. I estimate it to be 30 miles, possibly further.
For a second, I thought that the captain's name was Speed Estimate, and I was like, damn, he's never been... Nobody's been more named well enough to become a pilot.
Speed altitude estimate Johnson.
Yeah.
Like, God damn.
He was supposed to be a pilot.
If the estimate is correct, the UFO must have a minimum speed of 3,601 knots to traverse an area of 60 degrees in 30 seconds. Quote, if it were 60 miles away, probably a more accurate estimate, it would have been traveling at something like 7,300 knots. Quote, I may sound like science fiction, but my impression was that it could have been a spaceship of quite fantastic dimensions and speed, passing thousands of miles from Earth. The object, quite definitely, was not an aircraft, satellite, meteorite, or weather balloon. Quote, assume the object was way out in space and passing the Earth. It would have been of immense size and traveling at the quite fantastic speed of at 600 miles out over 60-degree arc of 7,000 miles an hour. That's the point. It's not at all...
70,000.
God damn. All right, it's traveling of 70,000 miles. I'm so tired. This is not at all impossible in the vacuum of space if some intelligent being has the power to accelerate to such speeds. Power. Judging from the tail on this thing seen on Sunday night, it had a lot of power. Mr. Johnson said suggestions that the object was a Boeing 707 were not feasible. Sunday night's UFO made no sound, yet the noise of a single-engine jet flying at high altitude above the clouds was clearly audible from the ground. It was hard to understand how the noise of the four-engined Boeing at climb power could be lost in patchy cloud. An explanation that the light came from landing lights on an aircraft was, however, feasible, except that the only aircraft over Darwin with landing lights showing at the time was a DC-3. Mr. Johnson said he saw the UFO and the DC-3 at the same time. There was no mistake. That's like, I want to stop real quick. That is the first time in history anybody's been like, nah, bitch, I saw that weather balloon next to the UFO. And then it's like, damn.
It's like he's just comparing the ships and being like, huh, well, I can't mistake those for each other.
Well, it could be nope, that's literally next to it. Nope, it's not a UFO. It's not a weather balloon. Like, goddamn.
It's like next to a bleep, it's next to a water balloon. I mean, a weather balloon?
A water balloon.
A water balloon, yes.
A water balloon, too.
No, those are what they're calling the USOs now, water balloons.
Water balloon.
Next to
they're
a
not weather balloons.
Next to a high altitude like radar study called Project Mogul that they claimed was actually behind, Roswell. It's like, nope, I saw that. It was right now. It was labeled. There was a flashing light on it. I was talking about that shit over there. Like, but that moment, first time in ufology, at least I've ever seen, where somebody just straight up said, nope, saw that shit at the same time. It was like, damn.
Yeah.
That's a very comedic part of a movie, I feel like. And it's just like, nope.
Military
That's a plane.
This is a military test pilot from the war, I'm assuming, from World War II, who is the chief flight instructor at the local airport, telling you this isn't a plane. And literally saying, I saw the plane you're referencing next to it. Like, how much do you need? I'm just saying, God damn it.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, that sounds like justice to me.
Mm-hmm. It's so juicy. This is why I was up till 4 a.m. I was like, oh dear God. Oh no. There was no mistaking one for the other. The possibility of a much smaller object being close to Earth could not be discounted. If this had been so, however, someone would have heard a noise, and the RAAF airfield at Lee Point would have made a radar plotting satellite. Mr. Johnson also discounted the possibility that the object was a satellite. It had traveled from 15 to 20 degrees above the eastern horizon. Did everybody measure shit in degrees back then? An elevation much too low to reflect the sun's rays. Satellite doesn't have a giant light bulb on it. Its high relative speed also ruled out the possibility. Mr. Johnson said, this was confirmed when the Echo 1 satellite was seen moving from east to west. I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, that's the satellite, too.
Like, could you imagine being a man in black and going to Mr. Johnson's house and you're just like, you saw this on that? Nope, that was next to it. It was a cow. No, there was a flying cow over there, too. God damn it. No, I even got a photograph, put it on YouTube. I saw it all. Just like, God damn it.
On YouTube.
All right, Mr. Johnson.
Fuck, he's
Here's
good.
your glasses. Here's your glasses and neuralizer.
You one of the team members. Oh, no, I already got pension from you guys. Worked for you a long time ago. It's like, oh, damn.
But you have to buy your own suit.
How do you think I got the basic-ass name? Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson. It just reminds me of Austin Powers when he's like, Johnson, what does it look like on their satellite? It looks like a giant swan. Richard, yeah.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, damn.
Doesn't hold up well anymore.
Well, I'm not trying to be depressed tonight, so I don't want to talk about you not seeing that movie. I'm just kidding. But no. The only way this could be better is if it was like an Area 51, like experimental test craft pilot of like the highest degree flying.
In Australia.
And literally a UFO is like attacking him. Like that's the only, this guy, again, like test pilot, chief educating pilot person. He's the head pilot of an entire airport. And he's literally identifying every single thing people are saying it could be. Like, could you get a more perfect witness than this? I have a hard time thinking of one. Mr. Johnson said, this was confirmed when the Echo 1 satellite was seen moving from east to west 5 minutes after he saw it.
Thank God.
It is known that unless one knows the size of an object, it is impossible to judge its distance, and that without knowing its distance, it is impossible to judge the size of an unknown object, particularly at night. but I must believe what I saw. Sunday night sighting, the UFO, as far as I am concerned, was a genuine UFO. Mr. Ron Gibson and Mr. Barry Morton, two of the three men whose report on the UFO began the controversy on Monday, today refuted the Boeing theory. East. Both said they were on the eastern side of the Stewart Highway at the time, 20 miles east of Humpty Doo.
Is that a real name? No, it's not.
Look at the fucking...
It's a name of a place.
Yeah, see, that's why people don't think Australia is real, because
Like a place like Humpty Doo. And...
Humpty Doo.
yeah.
The UFO is traveling still further east, but the Boeing would have passed them on the western side. I know Boeings are fast, Mr. Gibson said, but not as fast as this thing was traveling. It was at fantastic speed. I need to use the word fantastic more.
I know, right? That's such a great word.
It was at fantastic speed.
Fantastic.
It was fantastically miserable.
Yeah.
That guy was just basically trying to say like, I know you're going to say that Boeings are fast, but that's stupid. Like, I'm covering my base on this. Boeings are not that fast. This guy's like, okay, here's what I know you think it is. And here's what I literally saw right next to it or like a minute before that tells you it's not. And they're just like, but what if it was a shoe that caught on fire that got flung up into the sky? And he's like, no. And they're like,
yeah.
But what if?
What if this was a briefcase filled with $1 million?
Yeah.
Well, I do have college loans. So, yeah, here's the thing. I'm skipping over a lot. Y'all say something here on this. I'm just going to scroll through this. 54 pages. Okay, actually, I'm just going to pull it up on the side so you can see. This is the first page. This is the outside of the folder. Confidential, Department of Navy. Reference papers material only. Back of the folder, inside. Unidentified flying object sightings.
Wow.
UFO sightings are on increase. RAF probes reports. Like, the news snaps that UFO over Casawaria.
I love that you
Document. That was a UFO, says former test pilot. Mystery deepens on top. Like 54 pages of this. Taking place over a 15-year period, and you have shit that just straight up says restricted by secure means. Like, they were documenting the fuck out of all this stuff going on. They were meticulously keeping track of any local accounts, any local newspaper things, going through, clipping them out, writing the dates on them, scanning them, keeping them in their archive. Well, they weren't scanning them. They didn't have scanners back then, but they were literally keeping this shit and reporting it because it was happening so much over 15 years in the same place in Darwin.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking nuts. And I want to point out here, too, just as like, I don't know, spoiler alert, this shit all started with, where is it here? Stories about a monster in the area. Like
a water monster?
Yes.
Yeah,
this shit
like
started
a Loch Ness monster.
right here.
Yeah.
Like, I can't read that first part. It would have been November of 1959. The Mandora monster is not a fish. It is driven by an engine. That report that I read to you about the alligator hunter in the light, I believe that was 1967. It was 8 years later.
Wow.
The other report, the report about the mile-long light and all the other lights flying around, that shit was, I think, 1968. It just keeps going. But a lot of these
9
newspaper
years.
articles are kind of like, it's almost like everybody just had this collective amnesia about the shit going on.
Well, if you think about it, though, think about now everything
62.
is going on the papers, though, or, just social media, how, like, quickly, and, like, back then it wasn't a 24-hour news cycle. It was, like, less, but now we're, like, literally going through story after story one day, and then the next week we're like, what happened last week? because so much stuff is coming out. So I imagine even if they're span of 9 years, these people are just like, it's fine. Or even like treating it as like entertainment, you know? Like we do now with the news.
They had all these things going on too, like besides that.
They didn't have shit going on in this area of Northern Australia.
No, I mean like in the way that they have like so many weird stuff there that they're like so used to it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, cool, another weird thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
And they probably didn't want to believe it.
4 years before the this is like a small area. 4 years before the harbor incident, right, where like all the people got woken up, that shit came 6 feet from the edge of the ship, literally mile-long light underwater. We have a report from November 4th, 1963. Fishermen see weird light in local creek. A mysterious orange-colored light traveling about 10 feet above the water was spotted in Racecourse Creek on Monday night by 2 experienced Darwin fishermen. It was another croc shooter, by the way. Reports that are basically sending up the chain of command local newspaper articles and their own investigations about this shit going on for 15 years.
Yeah. No, it has to be something there that they were seeing. I mean, we know is like everybody knows they're documenting so much stuff, just whatever's happening nowadays, and the more information the better, because they can just reference it if something does come of it, like 10 years down the road, there's actually a monster there, or like an alien pops out of the ground and they're like, oh, see, it came from this.
Yeah.
So like documentation is paramount in the government, and documentation like to the T of like this happened and he felt this way and they felt this way.
Yeah.
And I had a slight tingling in my fingers when I went there. So it's like documentation is paramount for the government so they can reference it. As we know from watching the last Senate hearing, they documented his whole testimony. So it's like,
yeah. But with that, to kind of piggyback on that, the important thing here, and I know that this is in Australia, and I know Australia is not real, but for Americans in a real place, right? For Americans, this is I thought this came from America at first, like when I was scrolling at, like, this is the same shit you can find on declassified, like, or in declassified archives of shit going on in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Like, you can find documents like this out there. And to me, it's like, there's a lot of boring shit. There's a lot of like, whatever, skip. But then you come across something like this, 54 pages of an area just like recording all of these sightings, recording all these events, recording locals' responses to it. And you've never heard a single reference to it anywhere. Like, that's fascinating as fuck to me. Like I seriously hope that someday someone listening to this episode goes out, if they live near Darwin, and they start asking around, because there's a damn good chance there's a lot of people alive from this time period that saw shit that have never been recorded, never been interviewed, never been talked to about it, besides these military briefings, besides these newspaper clippings. Like, these folks are still alive. And frankly, this shit's way more exciting to me than Roswell. Like, this shit went on for 15 years.
Yeah.
That is insane. But
yeah, I wonder why there's nothing about it.
I don't fucking know. I seriously have no idea. I looked up everything related to, like, Darwin UFO sightings. I just don't think that it's like a place that's on the map per se. I don't think it's a place that people like look to. And we're looking at shit that is 40, 50 years declassified. Right? Yeah. Like, it was like the government slowly keeping track of this shit over months and years that were happening. They didn't want it to be big news, you know?
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to the Black Cat Report in our episode 60 Australian Declassified Document Highlight episode. We'll be doing a full-length episode in the future. Follow us on our Instagram for our latest and best. Well, please like, review, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, we'll see you on the other side.